Hey everybody, welcome to my Suburban Oasis. Today we're going to do some work in our front sun garden bed. We have a few little projects here and there that we need to get done just to kind of finish it out for the next few weeks. So today we're going to do some pruning on the barberry. We're going to transplant a salvia. We are also going to do a little bit of Chelsea chop on a mum. And yeah, we'll do whatever else we see that needs doing. All right, let's get going. Okay, well the sun garden is doing really well, and I did do some watering yesterday on it, and I came through and I did a bit of a Chelsea chop, and it does look quite drastic if you are not familiar with doing that. But what a Chelsea chop is anytime around mid-May to mid-June, giving things a really good cutback so that they will be more well branched, provide a nice mound, and provide a really thick set of blooms. So this here is a mum, and again, I know it looks really drastic, but basically we cut it back about halfway, and we did the same thing with the Veronica here, and over the next couple weeks they will begin to mound over and look really gorgeous. So I did save one mum right over here so that I can show you exactly how I do this. Now, one of the rules of thumb for me with the Chelsea chop is to make sure that for mums I do it before we get to July 4th. If I get to July 4th, I know it's starting to get too late to do them because they will bloom much later and they won't have enough time to really form their next buds and be able to give you a good bloom season. So basically all I'm going to do is take my secateurs and come in here and clip them back. So I think that's really nice and easy. And I'll collect the clippings from them and I'll put them onto my compost pile. Now, if I wanted this to go even faster, I would come through with the hedge clippers or the shears and could do it all in just a couple of chops. But I find it much easier to control the clippings and, you know, create a nice pile for cleanup by doing it this way instead. So this is not absolutely necessary step to take, but if you don't, what will happen is like this mum will get a bit leggy and it will flop, and it will have an open center in the middle. This isn't a guarantee, but it definitely gives it a much better chance of being really nice and beautiful. Well, since we're trimming things now, I'm going to show you what I do to trim my barberries. These orange rocket barberries are designed to be a nice vertical accent in the garden, and I think they look really amazing, but they do have a tendency after they put on new growth to kind of open up and make themselves wider. They will then start growing up vertically with their new growth, but today what we're going to do is kind of tidy them up a little bit because I don't want them to get too wide and take up too much space in the garden. Of the two barberries, I think this one actually has splayed out the most, and you can actually start seeing some really small growth starting to go up vertically. But what I'll do is just take some weight off of these branches on the outside, and as I do that, see how it rebounds. So it might begin to lift itself up. But yeah, basically I'm just clipping anything that's really heading out towards and looking like it's going to be growing more horizontally than vertically. And what this will do is, again, kind of help some of these branches to push up. And the other thing is it will begin to look a different color because some of the internal growth is going to start to show. That's totally okay. What will happen is as the sun begins to hit that internal growth, it too will start to look nice and orange. So don't worry about that. Now I could do this with the hedge clippers, but I just find it's a little bit more precise and I have a little bit more control over it doing it this way. Oops. When you throw your secateurs instead of throwing the clippings. The whole reason why I like these is because of the color of them, but also I did buy them to ensure that I had a nice vertical accent here. So I don't want them to start to really take over the entire bed. Let's take a look from the other side. As you can see, it's even more dramatic over on this side. So let's see what we can do if we can change the shape of this just by reducing some of the weight off of these branches here. It doesn't always work, and sometimes I do just have to do quite a bit of pruning to take it right back, and the center will fill in. But I'm just not liking how this is splaying out right now. Hopefully you kind of get the gist of what I'm doing at this point and understand the method behind the madness. And that's really all that you need in order to be able to do this. Now, barberry can be a bit prickly to work with, so make sure you have on some gloves. Leather gloves are probably best. I don't have those on today, unfortunately. So I'm just doing it very gently as I prune and take away. That way I don't have to worry about it hurting my hands and pricking into my hands. I think you can now start to see it beginning to take shape here. The thing I'm going for right now is kind of that open vase habit of growth. You can also prune for height if you want to on these. I typically don't, only because of the fact that I want these to be a strong vertical accent. But that could change over time. So my approach to pruning is always just based on, you know, how I want a shrub to grow. Because basically, you get to choose what you want that shrub to look like ultimately. And you'll get better and better at spot pruning like this as you practice it. It might not feel natural at first, but it will come to you, I promise. The other tip I would say is just prune back a little bit further than you want it to grow, because this will continue to grow this season. So if you think it's kind of jutting out into your space a bit more than you want it to, make sure you prune back a little bit further than where you actually want it to be. And that will help to ensure that the new growth stays within the bounds that you want it to. So you can really see some of the green foliage now on this, but it won't stay that color over time. I think I've got it just about where I'd like it to be. So let me show you the shape of the bush now. It's much more together in the center. I may actually trim some of the height off of this side right here, just to again help it kind of splay back inwards, but I think that looks really good. So then we're going to do the other one in a similar fashion. So in order to take some height off, I'm just kind of coming along the outside here. Taking a little bit off the tips. It's looking pretty good. And if over time I come through and I go like, oh my goodness, I think I need to take a little bit more off, I can do that. But right now, I think this looks pretty nice and full. And it's definitely more of the shape that I wanted it to be. All right, we're going to get this other one done real quick, and then I'll show you how they both look together. All right, well, we have restored kind of the shape and structure of those shrubs. I also, like I said, could come through and do a little tip pruning on the top of them to help bush them out a bit, and I just may do that. Not cutting them back all the way to like a flat surface because that would look really strange on these, but just encouraging, you know, the intersection of them to get enough sunlight to continue to fill out from the middle. All right, let's head over here now. We're gonna do a little transplanting of Salvia because here's what happened. I have 3 crystal blue salvias over here, and I wanted to put a new one in my back garden bed, but what happened is I got one that was on clearance when it wasn't blooming, and it said crystal blue color spires, but you can tell this is not crystal blue. This is definitely a deep purple. Now, when I saw these crystal blue salvias blooming here, I felt like they really didn't have as high of an impact as I would have liked in this area, because I really feel like the end of this bed needs a little bit more weight. So I thought with a darker color here, that would be really nice. So I'm going to take the middle salvia out, and we're going to replace it with the purple one, and then we're going to take that crystal spires blue and we're going to put it in my back garden near the fountain where we have a space waiting for it. So this is the one we're going to take out, and you may notice that I have actually done all of my cutting back on my salvia because they were just about done blooming, and I want to make sure to get another flush of blooms if I can. The nice thing about salvia is they are incredibly drought tolerant and tough. So this should transplant pretty well despite it being in the mid 80s today as a high and really sunny. But I will definitely give it plenty of water after I plant it. Same with the one I'm planting in here because it is very dry in the soil right now. And that's even after I spent some time yesterday giving this whole garden bed some water. It just absorbed it like a sponge. Now this has a pretty good root system on it, but I'm going to take the bottom right off. We'll encourage the roots again just to really spread themselves out. And this must have been, it feels like it's been grown in peat moss. So I'm just trying to make sure I get the roots all nice and broken up here. Okay, now let's get that watered in. Then we'll go plant this crystal blue one in the back. So this one we're going to give a real good water to. Make sure we water all around it as well. We have some pink scabiosa that's next to it, planted next to it. Didn't come back as well as I had hoped over the winter, but I had planted it in fall. So I'm just glad that it actually came back, and it looks like it's getting ready to bloom now. So that will be absolutely beautiful. The pink with this deep purple and then the light blue color of the other salvia in this garden bed. I think that's just going to be a lovely combination. And I did plant one of the dianthus right here in the front. Give that a little bit of a water as well, trying to make sure that those stay hydrated because, boy, right after I planted them, we definitely are going to be hit with some serious heat wave coming now. And again, no real rain to speak of in sight. Okay, well that should be good for that one. We'll give this root ball a nice watering in this pot before we head to the back. So here we are in the garden near the fountain, and this sedum was really just a placeholder. It's a sedum autumn joy because I really want to get a, you know, like I said, a crystal blue salvia planted right here amongst these others. They've been a really great color, and I've cut them all back as well in here, and you can see how I did that. So they will rebloom. They're already starting to set some new buds for rebloom, so I'm going to be really excited to see that. I've also found a couple of baby seedlings of Verbena bonariensis that I've kind of dotted in here. So they're really tiny right now, but they definitely don't mind being in dry conditions and heat. So I think they're going to do really well, and I think they'll look really pretty right up above and kind of waving in the wind behind these salvia because they are a nice deep purple color. All right, let's get this planted. Sedum is super easy to propagate. I just propagated this one last year. I have lots of sedum throughout my garden, so I don't know if I'll even be using this one. But they're also a really nice plant to grow in pots, so I highly recommend trying that if you haven't done that before. I think they look great that way as well. So that's it. Super simple and easy. Now we just need to water this one in as well. I actually wouldn't mind having another one in here just to help fill them in, but over time I'm going to actually be able to divide these as well. Now, just a tip for some of you new gardeners out there as it gets really hot out. Whenever you have a hose out in the hot sun, the water that is in it will also get about 5 times hotter than the air is. So you really don't want to, you know, use that hose water on your plants because it will just fry them. It will not help them. It will actually harm them. And I'm just giving a sprinkle to my new little Verbena bonariensis seedlings in here because of how hot it's going to be. But they don't have very deep roots, so I don't have to water them as deeply as this salvia. Transplanting during a day like today, you definitely can end up with some droopy flowers after you transplant, but don't worry. They should perk right up as the evening wears on and the temperatures cool down at night, and they should look nice and perky for you in the morning. If they don't, that definitely means that they need more water. So just keep an eye on them over the few days after you plant them and make sure that they have been watered well and deeply. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video and learned a little bit about pruning barberry for shape, especially when they look a little funky, and that we had some fun planting some perennials and transplanting some to new spaces in the garden. Thanks again for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.